All right, I'm back with the Unit 7 multiple choice questions and their answers, and more importantly, their explanations. So I know you've had the answers, but I do want to walk you through a couple of things to think about and look out for in these questions, not just to get them right, but necessarily just to get them right, but also to do them in a relatively quick amount of time. So the first two I really don't need to cover because it's just, do you remember how to declare an array list? The only thing that's slightly strange is in number 2, in that is legal. You technically do not need anything right there like integer, but it's better. So it is something that you never see. So anyway, hopefully that's not a question, and if it is, you'll remember it. Number 3, again, what do you put to declare an array list of strings before the assignment operator? There it is, E. 4 is a question to see if you know how to use all of the methods of an array list. And I guess a couple of things is, remember, when you add with 2 integers, the first number is the position, the second number is the value that you're adding. So this adds the 4 at the beginning. Set is actually a replace. So that replaces the position 3 with the value 2. So this is what the array looks there. The 1 was replaced by the 3, or 1 was replaced by the 2 at position 3. Removes the element at position 3, not the number 3. Okay, so that removes the 2 that was just placed in there. And then adds a 0 at position 2. Okay, and in the end, this is what your array list looks like. Similar situation here, except with strings, but the same things happen. And you can, as long as it's an integer here, it doesn't matter how you get that integer. So there's some strange things happening there. That's not an integer, that's the string that you're trying to add, but you can duplicate, essentially. Is that what that means? Also, there's a toString method attached to an array list that will print it out all nice like. Arrays don't have that, so it does actually print out like that with the square brackets and everything with the toString method. Moving on. A similar situation here, just using a combination of array list methods with integers and printing it out. So if you follow through all that and do some addition with those size variables, that is what happens. So a common situation in a multiple choice question is tracing code and being able to do it quickly. Some tips. First of all, pay attention to your loop starts and ends, how they start and end here, and what the conditionals are looking for. So this one is looking at the I variable, not the value of the array list. So it says if the index is even, okay, what happens? So what happens, it will print out the item at the even indexes, and that is 1 and 3. So that'll help you get through those a little quicker, I think. So on to remove. So here's what happens when you remove. When you remove an item, everything to the right of it in the array list will shift down a position. Okay, so that's key because I++, having shifted down, will actually skip a value. All right, so that's why new and pet are printed out as in the array, because some values are skipped. Okay, if I remove Matt, okay, in the loop, new is actually skipped, and open is removed, pet is actually skipped because I'm removing, it shifts down, and the I++ takes me to the next one. Number 9, similar situation. What gets printed if you do those things, and it's printing it, so prints what is removed, and then the other items shift down. So it only is going to remove A and C. So B and D remain in the array list, but because of the shifting that happens, but the remove function, while removing it, does actually return it. Number 10. So interesting question here as well, and it took me a little bit, so don't be, it's kind of a complicated looking question certainly, but the best thing to do in these situations is to figure out what is it doing, okay? It is checking to see if it's not equal, it's going to return false, and under what condition will it not work as intended. And what would happen is this will not work as intended because it does not check the last and in the first array list. It will not make it to the last item in the first list, and it will not make it to the first item in the second array list, the second list. Okay, so under those conditions, you can look at the lists options. Which one would cause trouble? Not trouble because they're the same. Okay, would not get a return false. These are different, so that would be trouble, except it would have already returned false looking at these two. Okay, again, my loops do not reach the final two values, so this one, the answer, of course, because everything else would not have returned a false except for the last two items, okay, and which the loops do not reach. These are the same, so that would not give a false positive or would not prove that it doesn't work as intended. Number 11, recall this causes a shift, and if you have two consecutive zeros, you will have a problem because one of the zeros will not get removed. Again, only if you have two consecutive zeros. All right, so this is a segment, num list and array list sorted in descending order, okay, is intended to insert a value correctly, but which one of these would cause a trouble? So, I mean, if you kind of look at, all of these are the same, potential value in an array list that looks like that. So that could be a clue that 4 is it, but if you do actually trace through it, what's going to happen is it would put 4 at the end based on this right here, while it's not equal to the current got item. So it'll put it at the end rather than where it should be is at the beginning, because it should be in descending order. 13, this is an array list that's going from the start 0, first element, to the last element. What would happen if I went from the end minus size -1 all the way to and including 0? What would happen here is it would return the index of the last appearance rather than the first appearance is what this would do. It would find the first instance of target. And this, if you modified it, it would return the last because it's starting from the end and looking backwards. 14. So this is an interesting, because what's happening is if you find the target, it records the position of it. Okay, it doesn't return the position right away. So it's going to go through the entire array. So it's not returned, and then what would happen is, I guess that's kind of irrelevant, but what would happen if you did the result is assigned that position? Why would you want to return the target? I mean, think about this. Whenever you're searching for something, you're like, where are you? Okay, not what are you, and this is returning the thing that you are looking for. So would return the target if target appears in there, -1 otherwise. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's actually pretty similar to this one. This one is returning when it finds it, but it's not returning the position, okay? Because it's a for each loop, it's returning the thing, the value you are looking for. Again, a search should return the location of the item, not the item. So that's answer E. 16, 17, 18, difficult questions. Again, some things to pay attention to. This one's starting at 1, going up to the length, so it actually is going to start at 0, but it does look backwards, so that's a thing. But the thing to remember with this question, I'm just going to jump down to the answer. So this while loop up here, okay, what is it doing? Well, it's going to swap values as long as the index j is greater than the previous ones, okay? And how many times does that happen? So how many times does essentially you're saying how many times does that happen? Well, how many times in this loop does the possible index greater than 0 and the previous item is, or the next item is less than the previous item in this array, okay? How many times it happened? Well, you can see that this is in descending order until the last item, okay? So it only happens the first 3 times through the loop, and it's going to happen that 1 time in the first iteration of the loop. It happens 2 times in the second iteration of the loop because it's looking at this one, and then it happens 2 more times in the third loop, so that's how you get to the 5, and it doesn't happen at all in the last time through the loop because 4 is not going to be less than the previous item. So 17 is a similar situation. So you are in a loop going from here. Okay, so this statement is part of the for loop, this one right here, not part of the while loop. So you're looking, so this is, I guess, one thing, this is going from 1 up to the length, okay? And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. It's not going to loop 6 times because I'm starting at 1. Okay, that means this is going to only go 5 times. So if you recognize that's where that statement was, that could have saved you some time. Okay, that's part of the for loop, not part of the while loop. So it's going to happen 5 times. The next one's a little bit similar to that, and the last one is, what is this thing doing? It's essentially saying this. It says, this line of code, okay, min index will only get changed if the previous element is less than the current element, because I'm looking forward in this k loop, okay? Min index will change then. If min index changes, this line gets executed. So you're looking for how many times does this thing happen, and it only happens if min index changes. This actually happens because that conditional right there is checking to see if j and min index are the same. They would have been set to the same up here, but this loop would have changed min index right here, possibly. Again, only under those conditions. And min index changes when j is 0, 1, and 2. Okay, it does not change when the index is 3 because the loop ends early because of this -1 up here. Again, a lot to look out for. I know. So that happens 1, 2, 3 times. When j is 0, 1, and 2, that min index does not change, so it happens 3 times. Hope this helps. Some crazy multiple choice questions here, so don't feel too bad if your head's spinning a little bit. You'll get more experience with them, you'll get more exposure to them, and feel better by the time exam day comes around. Let me know if I can help. See you soon.